Hi everyone, how are you? My name is Marsya from the Green Ribbon Group, and I'm your host for today's episode on the Mindful Conversations podcast, a series of podcasts discussing topics relating to mental health, produced by the Green Ribbon Group. Just to recap on previous episodes, we had Emma and Takif on board to discuss their journey, their mental health journey, their experiences living abroad, studying abroad. We had myself, Miss Jen from the Malaysian Mental Health Association, and Irfan discussing youth mental health in Malaysia. We had Irfan and Isha Vadilio discussing men's mental health in the last episode. And today I have our very own co-founder and vice president, Ariane. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, I'm the co-founder and vice president of the Green Ribbon Group. How old are we? We are 2 years in January, and I think today we'll just be having more of a chat about our journey thus far and what our vision is when it comes to contributing to Malaysia's mental health landscape in the years to come.
Yeah. So just as what Ariane has said, I call her Ariane. So just as what Ariane has mentioned just now,
Sure.
today's episode will be discussing all about the Green Ribbon Group. So today's episode is actually the final episode for the year. So we will see you next year. I'm pretty sure a lot of us are still wondering who the Green Ribbon Group is, what we do, what are our accomplishments so far, and just to introduce who we are a little bit. Just adding on to what Karen has mentioned before, we are a newly established mental NGO in January 2021. We champion a community approach to mental health,
Yeah.
which means that we believe that members of the community, you, me, Ariane, our camera woman, whoever's watching, can also play a part in mental health care. You know, we are an untapped resource to mental health care. We believe that mental health is not solely the responsibility of mental health
Government.
professionals alone and the government, you know, psychologists, psychiatrists, doctors, therapists, and all that. We don't believe that it is only their responsibility. So we believe we can all play a part. Right. So maybe a lot of people will wonder how we can play a part. Maybe we can just dive into the questions. So, Karen, why don't we start with what the story is behind GRG and how it came about?
Okay.
Yeah.
I think just to chat a bit more about myself, I used to work in a public policy think tank here in KL. I was there for about 7 years. I looked at issues like refugees, forced migration, socioeconomic dynamics. I touched a bit on drug addiction, treatment, rehabilitation. And when the pandemic started, so around February, was it March 2020, I was tasked to look at the impact of mental health, particularly when we were experiencing lockdowns for the very first time. And it just so happened coincidentally that year, Tengku Putri, our founder and our president, received the invitation from the World Federation for Mental Health to become International Patron of World Mental Health Day. I think we got the call in August. World Mental Health Day, as you may be aware, it's on the 10th of October. So we then thought, okay, why don't we sort of come together and see what we can do and how we can contribute, particularly because of the pandemic, for the next 1 year. So this partnership between Tengku Iman and myself, it was meant to be, temporary. But then as we sort of kick-started World Mental Health Day in October, the response from then and until December, 2 months in, just kept sort of increasing. It was then that we felt, okay, we need to sort of have more hands on deck. So then Tengku Iman reached out to you, her cousin, and then that's when we met. In December, I think we were having a meeting with the National Coalition for Mental Wellbeing. We then had to figure out, basic things as you would do when you want to start an organization, right? So, things like our vision. And then we had to sort of figure out, okay, how are we going to brand ourselves? Because there are so many mental health organizations out there, which is fantastic. So we made it very clear from the start, and this is made explicit on our website, that we don't want to reinvent the wheel. So we are not here to try and do things that have already been done. We want to support existing initiatives and we want to try and carve out an area where we can contribute. So we're not interested, I suppose, in competing.
Step on anyone's toes.
Yes, and because I think that's really, really important, because if you look at the mental health landscape in Malaysia, you would see that there are many, many different types of NGOs who have different niche areas.
Yeah.
So MIASA, of which Tengku Iman was royal patron of, they champion peer-led support, right? The Malaysian Mental Health Association, who we have worked with very closely, have been super supportive. They have been around since the 60s. So they offer things, they offer services, they offer things like mental health first aid, right? And then you have the NCMW, which is an umbrella of coalitions. You've got youth-led groups, you've got Minda Kami, you've got Nyawa. So that's a real focus on youth mental health. You have Relate, which is a fantastic think tank specifically on mental health research, something that is very much needed, because I think, one of the challenges when it comes to mental health is the fact that there's no data.
Yeah, resources are very limited.
Not just in Malaysia, but the ASEAN region in general. So for the Green Ribbon Group, when we were thinking, okay, how can we contribute best? We then thought of, as you said earlier, a community approach to mental health, which simply means empowerment, right? So we know what the mental health challenges are. For instance, there is, we know that there isn't enough psychologists, psychiatrists, counselors.
Funding.
Funding is a problem, although funding has increased during the pandemic, which is great. Issues like lack of awareness, which then leads to, for instance, stigmatization, prejudice. So the challenges are wide. So then we thought, okay, how can we try as best as we can to sort of hit the nail on all right challenges? So this idea of a community approach, well, why don't we raise awareness and include people into, as you mentioned before, into the mental health resource pool, right? Tengku Putri likes to say, prevention is always better than cure. So I suppose our key messaging is, if you nip it in the bud, if you tackle mental health problems, you have a higher chance of preventing the escalation from mental health problems to mental illness. And that's the first bit. But the second part, I think, of our messaging, which is equally important, is that everyone fluctuates from good mental health to mental health problems.
Yeah, every day.
It's not, every day. It's just a matter of figuring out how to manage that, how to deal with it, to learn a bit more about what our triggers are, what our coping mechanisms are. And you don't necessarily need to
have a degree in mental health for that, right?
Or like to sort of see a psychiatrist, counselors. Not that they're not useful, of course they are, but the point we're saying is that, basically we should feel empowered to take control of our own mental health. That's a very long-winded way of explaining who GRG is.
I think it's important to show that, because I think the perception of mental health is that you need external help always. Because it's health, right?
Correct.
Especially when it comes to the word health. Of course, okay, when it comes to health problems, you will see a doctor. But then with mental health, we want to empower the message that we can also control that. Same with health as well, but when it comes to mental, especially if it's like something, as people say, invisible, you don't know what works and what doesn't. So it really is on us, and we should feel empowered to figure that out by ourselves, because we can take control of that.
And to support ourselves, and to help other people support themselves as well. So it's I think a community approach to mental health is a two-pronged approach. It's about the self, but it's also about peers
and others.
Your
support
network, so on and so forth. So that's where I think GRG can play can play a substantial role. And that's what we pretty much focused on in our first year. So trying to carve out, okay, which bit along this mental health spectrum do we want to address,
Yeah.
and what are the solutions that we put
Yeah,
forward.
yeah.
So if we can look at the end of our first year as that being on advocacy, this year is us, okay, sort of trying, okay, you know what, why don't we try and put together our own programs, which you have put together, which you are training, and then we sort of, well, next month we'll be looking at our dashboard and seeing
Yeah.
our data and what that tells us. You know, are we delivering the right type of programs? Is this what students in universities and schools want?
Yeah.
How can
And
we
need.
improve? Yeah, want and need. You know, how can we improve? Do we have the support of school uni counselors, teaching staff? Because that's very important.
Yes, that's
also,
true.
I think one thing at GRG is we're very big on a collaborative approach.
Yeah.
Because I think it's quite hard to roll out a community approach if you don't have that sense of togetherness. You know what I
Yes.
mean? In 2021, for me personally, it was like, okay, how do we put together an organization? So mental health aside, I think for us, we as a team, we were trying to find our footing.
Footing,
You know,
yeah.
when they say startup stress, like that stuff is real.
It's very
Okay,
real.
yeah, that stuff is real. You know, it's things like, okay, branding wise, you know, things like, for instance, social media is a very powerful tool. So how do we utilize it best, right? So I think if you look at our Instagram, if you look at our older posts from the year before, you would see a lot of advocacy and awareness, you know, very basic posts, like, for instance, you know, what is depression, schizophrenia, things like that.
More on the education bit, right?
Yeah, you know, like, you know, why the stigma,
Yeah.
for instance. And I think last year and a bit this year as well, that we have sort of finished doing that already.
Yeah.
So when it comes to our social media, I think we are evolving to focusing a bit more on, okay, featuring, for instance, the community. So last year we spent a lot of time explaining what a community approach is.
Yes. Strengthening community support.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and sort of trying to illustrate how it is that the community can play a role. So, as you said, our theme, if you will, for year one was strengthening community support, and we relied on our collaborations with, for instance, the Malaysian Mental Health Association, right? In terms of us supporting 100 individuals to do mental health first aid,
Yeah.
in terms of us collaborating on a conversation on suicide, if people were to remember the tough times that we had last year, the sudden surge in suicide cases, and I think the public displays of some of them as well. So that was our contribution there. We also ran a quick workshop during the flooding season. You know, so these were pretty much, I mean, they were our attempt to show how you can pick up certain skills when it comes to mental health
Yeah.
to not only manage yours, but to also get out there and support people during times of crisis, right? We're not saying that we give people skills to manage a crisis situation.
Yeah.
We're saying is that you can learn skills to provide interim support.
Yes.
So if you think about it as, okay, so Marsya, you're not doing too well. I go in, I have a chat with you. I'm there to support you, but I also know, okay, who is the next best person that I should call.
The resources
Yes,
needed.
and my duty is to make sure that that what's the word, handover, maybe, you know, that I connect you with that person.
Yeah.
And that's it. You know, it's you know, these are basic skills that
Anyone can have.
yes, anyone can have. So in terms of the programs that we did, we then decided, okay, why don't we crunch some data, right? You know, our sample size last year, it wasn't big, right? But when there's not much data in the first place, I think whatever data you can get, you take.
Yeah.
So based on that data, we then, you know, it was then quite clear that people actually do want to participate in mental health community programs. People do want to learn more just to be more aware and be educated and to
Yeah.
have better literacy when it comes to mental health.
Yeah.
But most of all, people do want to help, which I think is great.
Yeah.
And I think what we have shown in terms of our data, and you guys can see this too on our website, it's very clear that we actually managed to refute certain presumptions that people have in mental health. Like for instance, only people in the urban areas
Yeah.
are interested. Because if you look at participation for both the conversation on suicide, mental health first aid,
yes.
because these programs were run online, you can see, I think Perlis is the only state that we didn't have a participant in either of these
Yes.
programs, right? So so this idea that only urban areas, like for instance, only the Klang Valley is interested
Yeah.
to learn more about mental health, not quite true.
It's not true.
Right. The second presumption that we managed to refute is this idea that there is a generational divide, and that our parents,
The older generation.
that our parents and the older generation are not as interested when it comes to learning more about mental health. But if you look at the data that we have, it's a good mix of young people
Yep.
and the older
generation.
and the older generation.
Yes.
I think the pandemic, if anything, has really brought out the importance of mental health. In terms of, for instance, what are the signs that I need to look for as a parent? Not that I'm a parent, I'm not, but I'm just saying,
You are
think,
an auntie, so it's kind of same. That's
yes,
kind of the same thing.
I mean, like for instance, for my nieces and my godchildren or whatever, what are the signs that I need to look out for? And like now with my niece Zahira, she just turned 5. I've noticed some, like just like if she were to get upset, she would say, "I'm so embarrassed because you don't love me anymore." So then it's like, well, but why do you think that? It's like, because you scolded me, so they have an understanding of emotions.
Yeah.
If she says, "I'm sad, I'm happy, I'm embarrassed," she's 5 years old.
Yeah.
But
The awareness is there.
yes, but the awareness is there. She has those feelings. Sometimes she doesn't know how to manage it. She has a fit.
Tantrums.
Right?
Yeah. But she's a child.
Tantrums. She's a child. But the point is that because she doesn't know how to express her feelings, maybe, right? So it's not that different for us adults, right? We have emotions, we have feelings, we have certain thoughts. How do we manage them? Or express them in
a healthy way?
Exactly. In a healthy way, or manage them in a healthy way. It's so these small things, I think, because I set out to do Green Ribbon Group last year with Tinkuiman, I've also sort of seen, like I've also, I suppose, been able to look in, I'm going to say inwards, rather cheesy, but I've also been able to look,
reflect.
That's a better word, thank you. To reflect on my own experiences, but also just on the people around me, like my niece. So it's. I think last year was really about empowerment.
I think I agree with that. I mean, the sentiment that adults know more, especially when you mentioned about your niece not knowing how to manage her emotions and she throws a fit, right?
Yeah.
I think for adults, instead of throwing a tantrum, we tend to shut out, shut our feelings out.
Yeah. Or become passive aggressive. I am prone to doing that. I know. Or becoming too emotional, where you, for instance, lose maybe your sense of professionalism. When it comes to working or
I think the message that we're trying to give out also is that we're all a work in progress. It's okay to have feelings and it's okay to have bad feelings.
Yes.
But I guess the important thing to do is to manage it well, and that's how we aim to do through our programs. Ariane mentioned skills just now. How these skills that we can have to offer support, and that's what we aim to do through our programs in universities and schools. Because emotions is not something that it's not something that off and on, right? Like it develops over the years. So what we aim to do through our programs is that, okay, of course in life there's developmental stages, right? And of course in universities you have different in working life, in university life, and in school life, you have different challenges that you face. For the university students, we discuss more on, of course, an introduction to mental health. That's important, and then we go into
The
empathy
basics.
training. Yeah, the basics. So we go into empathy training, more on peer support, and then we go into advocacy because they are turning into adults, right?
Yeah.
They're already young adults, university students. So we're trying to show them, while you are also managing or helping yourself, you can also help other people more than you can before. But for school programs, for our program is from 15 to 17-year-olds. It's called TM Future Skills Mental Health Literacy. You can check it out more on our website. But for that specific program, we focus more on, of course, introduction again to mental health. We talk about the self, because that's when I think when it comes to students in schools, or when we're younger anyways, especially with myself too, there's a lot of emotions because our hormones are raging. So there is a need to have that awareness, that sense of awareness and sense of management for ourselves. And I think a lot of teenagers struggle to do that. So we do focus a lot on that in our school programs.
Self-awareness.
Yeah, self-awareness,
self-management.
self-management.
Yeah. Self-management.
Yeah, and then of course we touch into peer support too. But that's a bit on our programs this year. How do we upskill the community's mental health from young, so that when they become adults, they can apply those skills in work. Yeah, so that's kind of like our programs for this year. You can check it out more. Both of our initiatives for 2021 and 2022, you can check it out at greenribbongroup.com. If you want to learn
And
more
our
about it.
Instagram, because
And our Instagram.
we
Update
put
regularly.
together some pretty good reels for you guys to sort of have a feel of what we offer.
Yeah.
And I think most of all, for you guys to hear from participants and from our collaborators, like the school counselors or the university teaching staff and things like that. So yeah.
What are GRG's future plans?
If there's a big if the data that we collect suggests that there is interest, firstly interest in our programs. Number two, if it suggests that what we are offering, that we are on the right path, then we should take the risk and try and expand. When I say the risk, it means, like, for instance, we are, I am very mindful that no one in Green Ribbon Group is a psychologist, psychiatrist, that will always be a caveat, right?
Yeah.
So when we first started GRG, we were very apprehensive about that fact. So none of us are mental health professionals per se, which is why we do not offer mental health services, right?
Yeah.
So we don't have a hotline, we don't offer therapy, we don't offer counseling. But and there's a very big but here, which I think is a positive plus point for us. We do have a network that consists of all these people.
Yes.
And we are never one to shy away from sort of saying, like, I'm doing this program, can you see whether we're on the right path?
Yes.
What are the suggestions that you have?
Yeah.
So we have done that. I think for us, we should try and aim to take our programs state by state. It would be super fantastic if Green Ribbon Group, at the end of year 3, so in December 2023, if we are able to say this year we managed to hit universities and schools in all 14 states, right?
Yeah.
So the challenge for us, I think, in the first quarter of 2023 is to figure out, okay, the logistics behind that.
That's true.
Right? So for instance, how many schools do we want to hit state by state? How many universities, right? Are we okay to just keeping our programs to 30 kids?
Yeah, per school.
Right, per school. Especially when we have realized that actually teachers in schools in particular are asking us to open it up to more.
Yep.
Right? So so what is a reasonable target?
Yeah. Per school.
Of participants per school, per uni. So I think next year it will be a lot of logistical planning.
Yeah.
But I think that should be the first thing, is for us to get our programs out there. The next step for us is, I think, to start communicating what we're doing with key stakeholders. So ministries of education, higher education, Ministry of Health, relevant state departments, we want to be able to show that we've done our research,
Yeah.
that we've trialed our programs, that we have data to back up what we're trying
Yeah.
to recommend. You know, and I think in essence, like this approach that we would be taking next year is something really unique, because we are working alongside education providers.
Yeah.
So we are essentially trying to say that, you know, it's fantastic to have a more educated, I suppose, to have a more educated workforce when,
Yeah.
when, for instance, our kids leave university. But that doesn't, you know, it's fabulous to have a more educated workforce, but you also need to equip them with life skills and
Yeah.
mental health literacy. The management of it must be part and parcel of that life skills package. Because you know, it's if I think if the pandemic has taught us anything, it is that it can be quite a scary world out there. You know, things suddenly can happen and sort of change your life, however temporarily at that moment. And you need to be able to figure out, okay, how do I manage? Because what we did this year was we actually engaged with a lot of students in roundtables to ensure that what we offer, particularly in our university programs, is what students want. And the essential message that we got from students is that I didn't know how to manage uncertainty. Like one day things just flipped, things just changed. I went from going to lectures in person to just sitting in my room and like living through a screen. It was tiring. It was this, it was that. And then when things started to revert back to what it was pre-pandemic, I didn't know how to manage that transition. So you know these are, you know, there is a need, I think, to equip our youth with mental health skills.
So now that we've talked about what we have done so far, our future plans, I think it's important for us to also highlight our achievements. So in your opinion, what has been the key milestones for GRG?
I think this year we've had quite a few. I think GRG being part of the first Malaysian delegation to attend the World Federation for Mental Health Congress in London, I think that was a big win. You know,
For Malaysia.
For Malaysia. So I think that was a major win for the organization. The second thing for us is, I think, receiving our first grant this year, which has been great. Like a million and one thank you to Yayasan TM for believing in what we're trying to do, for having faith in our ideas, in our implementation and things like that. So I'm really proud that we managed to put out our own programs in universities and schools. Last year, I think our key milestones last year was the fact that we managed to advocate on such a big scale for a very small team at that time. We were only a team of 3. So I think that was a big win. So I suppose when it comes to Green Ribbon Group, like you do, I don't know whether you guys can see this, but you do see a steady graph increasing upwards when it comes to what we're trying to achieve. So we started off advocating, which was great. We then complemented that advocacy with certain skills, which we are piloting. Right? So, you know, when it comes to the university programs, 6 universities in 3 states, 200 students, fantastic. We are hitting 10 schools in Ulangat. Right? You know, so hopefully next year it goes higher to us going to other states, meaning more students, and hopefully that means more partnerships as well to support these programs. When it comes to 2024 and onwards, really depends on what unfolds next year actually.
Onwards and upwards.
Yeah, I think to me the biggest milestone is that we have kept moving, no matter what stumbling blocks
we faced.
We faced.
I think one more milestone that we have hit for this year is that we signed our very first MOU too. With an education institution here at What University in Malaysia. So big ups to that. Big
Yeah.
ups to Harriet Ward
Thank
too.
you, Harriet Ward.
Thank you, Harriet Ward. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think thank you, Ariane, for joining in the podcast and for laying
Thank
out the
you.
foundations of GRG today. We've unfortunately come to the end of the podcast. Ariane, would you like to share your final thoughts or a short message to our audience?
I think it's just really important to put the message out there that mental health is the responsibility of all. Basic things like being kind to one another, offering a listening ear when you feel someone isn't doing too well, or having the courage, right? Or having the courage to reach out and ask for help. There is absolutely no shame in saying, "Look, I'm not feeling okay today. Can I come and see you? Can we go out for a meal?" That is bravery. That is courageous, and I think it's important for us to have that self-love in us to be able to say, "I need a bit of support." Number one, and for us to be able to support our friends and family and loved ones to say, like, I'm here for you. Like, what do you need? I think that is like the very basic of what we can do, and that is just the foundation of our message, really. So yeah, again, very long-winded of me. I apologize, but yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
To all of you watching this video, thank you so much for staying to the end of the video. Don't forget to like, share this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and comment down below what you'd like us to cover next, any topic you'd like us to cover next. We'll see you next year.
Yeah, see you in 2023.
See you in 2023, and don't forget to keep the conversation going. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.